Hello, everyone, and welcome to Between the Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Stephen Colton,
And I'm Christopher Market.
and today we have a very special episode, something in the making for quite some time now,
Yeah,
going on a year maybe.
we've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah, and then we had a little setback about a month ago, but we're here now. We're gonna do it. This guy is a really cool dude. A lot of people may know him from Kevin Smith's Clerks, the first Kevin Smith movie, and from 1994. This guy played the Chuli's gum representative. He also has done several other things. He's an actor, musician, really great guy. If anybody, listening to this show or watching this has heard our regular podcast intro with a little theme song that I have on there, this guy's done that. He did that music. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one, the only Mr. Scott Schiaffo.
Hey,
Hey, how's it going?
good. How you guys doing today, man?
Doing
Good.
great. Finally here.
Yes, it's been a while in the making, but here we are.
And I had to come on here and spread some Jay and Bob love.
Oh, very
With,
nice.
Yeah. From the night I fortunately got to meet Kevin, that was a cool night.
Oh, that's great. What was that? When was that?
It was in May 2018. He was here in North Carolina. He was on a tour. It was the Super Villain Tour. So every town they stopped in had a Vil at the end of the name. And Jay wasn't with him that round. I think he was booked somewhere else. But it was really cool to get a chance to sit and watch him again, and then get to meet him afterwards. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's great in the Q&As, man.
Oh yeah, he might have answered 2 questions in 2 hours, but still, it was awesome. So how have you been? How was your holidays and your New Year?
Really good, man. I can't complain. 2020 has been really miserable for just about most of us, but I feel very fortunate that I did have a handful of projects that were released in 2020, COVID aside, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And, looking forward to a much better 2021, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Very hopeful for this coming year. I mean, after 2020, I mean, I don't want to say can it get any worse, because I guess it obviously could, but man.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, I'm going to try my best. Oh, gosh. So, yeah, I guess we didn't really have anything set in mind. I wanted to talk a little bit about Clerks, obviously. Might just go ahead and start there. I've seen that movie probably a million times, and I've owned it like 3 or 4 different times. I had the DVD, and then the Clerks X DVD came out. I got that. I passed on the DVD to my brother, I think it was. Then the Clerks Blu-ray came out. I'm like, awesome, get that. Passed down Clerks X to my brother, and my mom, of all people, ends up getting Clerks, which I think is crazy, because I sat and watched Chasing Amy with my mother.
Nice.
And so she actually kind of enjoyed it. It was a little awkward for me, but, because anybody that knows that movie knows the content of that movie. It could be a little weird to watch with your parents. But it was nice. So I love watching the documentaries, the Snowball Effect documentary. I love seeing how that movie came together. And I guess I wanted to ask you, like, I don't know if I've ever seen or heard, like, how you actually got involved with Clerks.
Well, I was very fortunate to have seen an ad that he put in the classified paper of a paper up by me. Now, I was about 2 hours away from those guys. I'm way up northern New Jersey. I'm 10 minutes outside of New York City, Bridger Tunnel. Those guys are down in Red Bank. They're South Jersey. They're pretty far. We're not from the same neck of the woods. But back then, before the internet and smartphones and things of that nature, actors would look in the trade papers, Backstage Magazine, and your local classifieds would have ads for people who were casting films. And independent film back then was not very common at all. I mean, there was a good handful going on in New York City, which I'm real close to, but there weren't a lot of people in New Jersey shooting film. So when I saw the ad, I said, well, this is awesome. There's somebody in New Jersey shooting a film. I have got to get to this audition. So I went down and I did my prepared monologue, because the first night when you went, you didn't read from the script. Everybody did a prepared monologue. And very lucky for me, they liked what I did, and they had me come down a week or so later to actually read from the script. And that's when they didn't offer me the role right then and there, but a few days after that second reading, they offered me the role of the Chewlies Gum guy, and I was ecstatic, because just in that short period of getting to talk to Kevin, you know, I knew that we were in really good hands. He's an extremely funny guy, and he has a real command of language.
Oh yeah, I mean he's such a well-spoken guy, and he's such a smart guy, and it's crazy. Like there's some people, you know, Kevin Smith might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I mean, like, I've always loved everything the guys have been involved in. When I finally got to meet him, I'm like, he exceeded every expectation I have of him. Like, I didn't get to talk to him very long, just a brief little like, hey, how are you? Because I was kind of nervous. I'm like, what do I say to this guy? Yeah, and he just, I'm just like, thank you for, you know, being funny. Thank you for everything. And it's a pleasure. I shook his hand, and he said, it's a pleasure, and kind of went from there. I was like, oh man, I didn't want to bother him, you know. But I mean, he's a great dude.
He really is. He's a sweetheart. I mean, he genuinely loves the supporters of the View Askew universe, and he'll make time for just about anybody. I saw him in Red Bank not that many years ago. He literally, after he did a sold-out show at the theater in Red Bank, he went back to the stash, and he stayed there till like 5 a.m, till the entire line got to meet him and get their things signed. That's the kind of dedication he has to the hardcore people.
Yeah, I mean, he is really gracious. Like, we were waiting outside the venue there where he was, and he just comes out and first thing, like, all right, guys, I'll be right there. Let me put my stuff in the car. I'll be right over. I'm like, oh man, like he knows the drill. Like, he knows, like. And luckily for him that night, there was only like 9 or 10 of us like outside. The crowd got kind of smaller and smaller. Everybody's like, oh, he's not coming out. But I was like, just hold on. Just hold on.
Oh, that's great.
So did you know at the time when you were playing this role how big a deal this movie would become?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, I did not get the entire script. I was only given the pages that the Chewlies Gum guy appears on.
Okay.
So it wasn't until pretty much almost a year later when he sent us all his VHS screener copy, his original director's cut of the film. When he sent us all that was the first time I actually got to see the film from start to finish. I had no idea at the time we were filming what came before the Chewlies Gum guy or what came after. I only knew the Chewlies Gum guy parts. So I was blown away at how irreverent and hilarious it was. But I also thought that because it was so cutting edge and really crude, that it would have a hard time getting some type of crossover audience. It would be a small cult thing. I never dreamed it would get that kind of response. Yeah, there's Chris Pierdiomenico. He's a wonderful young man. I've worked with him. He's a great director. I worked on a project with him this year that's hilarious called Jesus versus Satan, Rise of the Zombies. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been following Chris's Facebook and everything on that when he was, you know, showing updates and pictures from the set and stuff like that. And I'm excited to see the final product. I mean, it seems like a great project.
It's hilarious. It's on YouTube. You can check it out for free. It's a testament not only to he's gifted satire, but he did it all during the height of COVID. A lot of us shot our scenes ourselves. There he is on the smartphone directing me, and I'm shooting with my own camera, which was it was really awesome. And
cool.
I got to do a lot of firsts in that film, which I don't want to give away too much, but it's really funny. He did a phenomenal job with the film.
Yeah, I definitely need to check that out tonight or very, very soon because
Yeah, it's right there on his YouTube. I'm sure I could set up another link from my Facebook, but it's been linked up. It's probably linked on his page as well.
oh yeah, I'm sure it is. He's got another little comment here. Thanks for the plug and the kind words, Scott. Always a pleasure to work with you. Great podcast, Stephen and Chris. Thank you. That's cool. I always love positive feedback, and it's always good to know people are enjoying everything we're doing, you know.
Yeah, Chris is a really wonderful young man.
He's great. You know, I started writing I've kind of been working on this little screenplay for like a year or so, just as like a fun little thing. And I'm like, I really see something going for this, you know, maybe it's going somewhere. And he helped me, giving me a little bit of advice, you know, and it's coming on very slowly. I set a goal for myself by the end of January to finish it. And I'm not quite there yet, but I think I'll get there by January 31st.
Well, you know what? I heard somebody tell me years ago, I'm not a screenwriter myself. I've only written one short screenplay and in my book. That's different than a screenplay. But they say writing is rewriting. So you got to bang out that first draft so that you can work with it, edit, bang out that second draft. Because, you know, unless you're Stephen King, nobody's banging out a first draft that's flawless. So it's important to bang out a draft and not set yourself up for any kind of harsh goal, because you're going to be it's only natural to do a lot of rewriting once you start getting some feedback on the script.
That's good advice. I'm an English teacher, and I always tell my students, you know, don't worry about editing yourself now. Get it out of your head, get it on the paper. Once it's there, then you can go after it and correct the errors. But you really want to just get the draft out of you, capture it, and then make it perfect later.
Absolutely. It's one of the greatest things I ever heard about writing was writing is rewriting.
So you talked about a novel. What is your novel about?
No, not a novel. I actually have a book of short stories and poems that was released a handful of years ago. We just recently did the audio book during COVID. So the audio book came out this summer, and it's also available on CD with a really beautiful custom 20-page booklet of artwork by Scott Meany, who does almost pretty much all of my artwork. The guy's a brilliant artist. Also working on a project with him this year. But I had done a lot of writing back in the late 80s, early 90s when I had been battling I had been through alcoholism and drug addiction pretty badly, but I had done a lot of writing during those years. So eventually, once I sobered up, I had released the writing and we did the audio book. There's Scott Meany. That guy's the best. I love that guy.
Well, that's great. Did you find that it was like cheap therapy for you to write?
Absolutely. It was kind of very strange. I had it really bad. I mean, I was it was really dire with the alcoholism and the drug addiction. There were a handful of years that people who knew me really thought that they were just waiting to get that phone call, you know. I had been in and out of a bunch of rehabs, and it was really, really dire. But during all that time, I would plunk out and write either short stories, and they were all based on what was happening with the lifestyle, and poems, sort of like, you know, my idols at the time were Charles Bukowski and Burroughs and people like that. Now, I would never compare myself to those guys, but that was sort of the genre I was going after. And I couldn't do much in terms of my music really suffered. And I kind of was able to still keep the acting because I would binge drink. I would stay sober long enough to shoot my scenes. But then once the movie didn't need me, I'd be off and I'd be on some binge. So it was pretty rough going. But thankfully, that's long over now. I haven't had a drop of alcohol in 16 years.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, what was the turning point for you?
Well, what it really took was it took a lot of a really big health scare. In 2004, I had a really serious bout of congestive heart failure, and that sent my heart into a tizzy of a number of other ailments. So from 2006 to roughly 2009, 2010, I literally was almost like a full time heart patient. I had procedures and I was on and off a bunch of experimental medications. I have an ICD, an implant. I was literally in the heart ICU probably every 30 to 90 days for that 5 or 6 year period, and it looked really grim. So alcohol was completely removed from my life, which was a blessing. And then once I finally cleared up from the heart problems, thankfully, I realized how long it had been since I had a drink. But more importantly, it was really like a miracle. I didn't miss it and I no longer craved it. And it's been a blessing because since then, I no longer miss it or crave alcohol because I really battled with it. And my heart goes out for people who battle because when you're caught in the grip of that and you really want that drink, it's a horrible feeling. I would always end up going back to the drink. It was terrible, but thankfully no more. I feel very blessed for that.
Well, congratulations on
Great.
years of
Thank
sobriety.
you.
So I see the guitar behind you, and I know you talked about the importance of music.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, music was my first passion from the time I was a very small child. I was raised by a very strong single mother. My father was not in the picture for many years. Um, but I had an older cousin who was like a big brother slash father figure. And he was a real music enthusiast. And now we're talking the 60s and 70s. He would bring home all of the new albums of the day, the Beatles, the Stones, Otis Redding, Sly and the Family Stone, all of the stuff from the late 60s into the 70s, the Rascals. And I fell in love with music from the first time he sat down and put a record on. And I literally think I knew all the Beatles names before I knew the names of people in my family. Um, so music was a huge first love and passion. And when I was old enough to actually plunk out some notes, my mother got me a guitar. And from age 13, probably right up until my late 20s, if I was awake, I had a guitar in my hands. I mean, music meant the world to me. It still does. But the acting bug got me in high school and college. So I started to balance the two. And I still kind of do that. I balance the two.
You've got some great stuff. I mean, I haven't heard a lot outside of the album full of the instrumental tracks and things like. And like I was saying in the beginning of the show, that intro that I use that we have for the show, I mean, that's awesome. It's got that little bit of guitar in it. And I know I was asking you like, what do you think is your favorite? And I kind of agreed. You know, they're all great, but I mean, that one just kind of hit me. I'm like, that's got to be the intro.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's funny that one has gotten a lot of use because the record was released. I released a collection of instrumental music from films that I did the scores between like quite a while, like the last 15 years or so. It's a collection of music from films that I did the scores of that I released the music as royalty free so that if you buy the CD, you can then use that music in your film or in your, however you see fit. All I ask is you either give credit or even a small donation to the animal charity that I work for. But once you buy the record, you could use the music royalty free. And that particular track does see a lot of action. It's the more it's one of the more rock tracks on the album. A lot of them are orchestral.
Yeah, and I mean the music I used before was some like stock music that the anchor.com website had, and I'm just like, but that one, yeah, it had that rock feel, and I really just I don't know, it just kind of I related to that. Like it was just had that energy that I was looking for.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That's great.
What was it like, going kind of to Jay and Silent Bob reboot, going down to New Orleans to film that little spot? Like, how was that experience?
Oh man, that was just the best. I got to see all of my old castmates who I do get to see them. Well, COVID ruined pretty much everything last year, but I do get to see a good handful of them at the conventions when we do the circuit. But for all of us to get together and be in that one place for his shooting, doing a large chunk of the reboot shoot in New Orleans, it was just the greatest. It was, it was exciting. It was great to see everybody. We were on the set when a lot of other people were on the set. I got to see Jason Biggs and Vanderbeek do their stuff, and Dieter Bader was there, and Keith Coogan, who's hilarious, and
Yes.
ours. It was just super exciting. The comic book men were all there. Brian Quinn. So, it was just, I hardly slept. It was just exciting. It was fun to be on the set.
Yeah.
And then just to hang around and see, watch him film all the other stuff. It was just the greatest. When they explained to us that the cameo he had involved, he had for us, because initially he was trying to use the original cast somehow, but we didn't know how it might be. But when we found out that we would actually be doing cameos as ourselves on a CLERKS panel, that was just really a mind blower, because that kind of notion, if you would have told us 20 years ago, you could never wrap your head around something that, bizarre. It was just really great.
Yeah, that scene, I watched it twice in the theater, that little short run that they had. I watched it the first time, and then I saw the second showing with the original Jay and Bob movie, like the double feature. And when I saw that, they run in, and they see the cast on the panel, and so it's like two guys that were characters in CLERKS seeing actors from CLERKS. I'm just like, wait a minute, what's going on here? It was really confusing, but it was just great. It's
and then it all turns to black and white.
The whole scene black and white. They look at each other, oh god, and then they run away. And then Kevin Smith as a character, as himself, and it's really hard to wrap your head around, but it's one of those things where it's hilarious, either way you look at it.
Yeah, he did one hell of a job with the reboot. He was able to work in just about every, without he is a slave to the story. So if a character doesn't make sense in the story, he doesn't just shoehorn people in for the sake of having them on camera. He was able to make all those cameos work in a really clever way, where it didn't look like they were just shoved in there just to be in there. And it was just an insane amount of cameos for pretty much almost everybody who ever worked with him.
Just about, yeah. I saw so many. I was almost expecting to see a Seth Rogen pop up, but I mean, you had some Zach and Miri people, and you had some and the lawyer. I don't know. I forget his name in reboot. Justin Long. Yeah, he was great.
One of my favorites. Yeah,
he was great. That whole movie, Craig Robinson was amazing. Love the dude. I'm a huge fan of The Office, so I've loved that guy since then. And in every other movie he's done, and it's just every time, every scene, I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy's in it. That girl's in it. Oh wow, her, him. I'm like, it just kept going, and then you get to the credits, and then the movie just keeps going.
Yeah, it really was something the way he made it all work out, and I got to see it with a live audience a couple of times, and what really touched me was, because I've gotten pretty close to Brian O'Halloran over the years, when Dante comes on screen, the place goes nuts.
Oh, yes.
The audience just goes nuts. And it's, I got a little emotional, but that's because I'm so close to the movie and I'm so close to Brian. But he deserves that, because he really is one of the main staples of the franchise, is the Dante character. So when he pops on screen and the place just goes crazy. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
That's great. And I love the ending scene. I don't want to go into too much detail in case anybody out there hasn't seen the reboot so far. But I mean, at the very end of the movie, it's like you see him again in that last scene, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that right there answered like a 20-something-year-old question for me.
Yeah.
As far as the story involving Gum and the Locks, who many years people theorize that your character was the one, gumming up the locks.
Right, I've heard that. Yeah, sure.
I mean, but it's so great to see him and that character in the movie, and I'm excited that there's going to be a Clerks 3 finally. I mean, eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, we should get there. I think Mallrats 2 is probably going to happen first.
Yeah, I think he's going to be doing that this year.
But, he also broke new ground with the reboot because it's kind of, they used to do this decades ago, but this is new again, where the director and some of the leading cast actually tour the movie so that they go with the movie, do the Q&A, view the movie with the audience, and then have a meet and greet. So, he's bringing back a new and revitalizing an interesting way to market a film.
It's a great, and especially, like after COVID and everything, a lot of people, are talking, will the theater industry, bounce back from this? And I'm sure they will to an extent, but it's going to be different than it'll never be the same again. I don't think. And
it's true. I don't know how. It's largely unseen now what the overall effects are going to be in the long run. But it's true. The longer we've all stayed in more or less a lockdown phase, and the more things that we do by being able to stay home, the more that's going to become more of a norm, with the exception of live entertainment, whether it's live music or live theater. But again, with a film, it's still exciting to see it on the big screen with a live audience.
For sure. I mean, it's so much better. I mean, I know they're doing it now. It's pretty normal to do the on-demand kind of thing at home, spend $20, watch a movie with your whole family. But there's something to be said about a dark room and a huge, like 50-foot screen, and the sound and everything. It's just not the same as being and having that experience.
Right. No, it's just not. I don't know. COVID is just so insane, and we've got the vaccine, but it's a little slow now, and who knows? I just hope someday. I think that reverence for certainly live music will come back, because that's something that we'll definitely miss. And movies in the theater. I mean, I miss all of that.
Yeah, and the last movie I saw was right before the U.S. got hit pretty hard. It was the Impractical Jokers movie.
Oh, wow.
And I got to see that in the theater, and then I forget when it released, but I think it was early March maybe, or February.
Yeah, it was right on the cusp.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great movie. Anybody likes that kind of thing, likes the Impractical Jokers. You mentioned Brian Quinn earlier, who's, been involved with Kevin Smith and that whole world for, I think, going back as far as, what was it, mid-90s, I guess.
Oh, yeah. He used to be a staple at the Stash when it first opened. And he got to know Walt and Brian very well. That's how you have the whole Tell 'em Steve Dave crowd. Brian Quinn's a featured part of that show.
I listen to that every week. They post an episode, or sometimes, every episode I'm subscribed to it. I got to listen to those guys. It's just, it's great. And, they've known each other for however many years, and they've got that chemistry where it doesn't matter what they're talking about. They bounce off each other so well, and it's just hilarious no matter what it is.
Yeah, it's really quite a phenomenon how large the fan base for that Tell 'em Steve Dave is. It's massive.
And then they've been talking about the new Stash they're setting up down the street, and they're gonna have their own little Tell 'em Steve Dave corner in the store, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, so that they could do the podcasts again. Yeah, I tell you, it's really something. Kevin really capitalized on technology at a time when not too many other directors were really paying as much attention. And a lot of that is thanks to the secret weapon of Ming Chen, because Ming is the guy that got him really active on the internet.
Yeah, Ming's a great guy. I mean, a lot of people that don't really know, like if you're not really into the telling Steve Dave stuff, or you don't really know the story behind those guys. You know him from Comic Book Man, and he was like the whipping boy, pretty much,
Right.
who everybody picked on. And I remember when he's wearing the little girl's like Wonder Woman outfit.
Yeah.
That they got in, and then they made him put it on and walk out. And it's like, but Ming's a good dude. I mean, I've talked to him online a little bit, trying to get I'm getting involved with them and the whole shared universe thing. We're going to do another one like this with those guys. Another one that's been in the works for a while. It's just setting the time up and getting that booked up and everything. I was really wanting to go to Jersey and do it in studio with them. And I was hoping to do that this year, but then COVID happened and everything.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be hard to get that done. But
well, we got to hope that we get it back under control and that the numbers go down, and there's a good turnaround in 2021. It's just really scary.
Yeah, it's jumping up there pretty quick, and it is scary. It's really, I mean, you don't know day to day what's going to happen. I mean, here our restaurants and things have already gone backwards again. They were 50% capacity down to 30. I haven't eaten out in a restaurant in over a year now because I just don't want to really put myself in that situation unless I have to be there.
Well, that's true. Why take an unnecessary risk? California is really, my heart breaks for those folks. I mean, they're getting hammered again now. I heard on CNN today, it's like there's a COVID death every 10 minutes. That's just horrific.
Well, that's where I live. I live about 60 miles away from LA. And
so, my God, it's getting really bad out there, right?
It really has. It had been like this slow creep, but it's been crazy. Schools are shut down, and at one point things seem to be kind of opening up and relaxing as far as restrictions. And some people didn't take a lot of the requests seriously, and they had to shut things down really, really hard. But yeah, I was in the ER just this last Monday, and just seeing how impacted the waiting rooms were and the facilities were with COVID patients, it was a real eye opener for me. So.
Oh, sure. I can't even imagine what it's like out there. It's just. Like I said, again, according to today's report that I heard, they're at full capacity.
Mm.
Yeah, they're literally sending patients who need to be in the hospital home to make room for beds for COVID patients.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. So I don't know when the end is going to be in sight, but it can't come soon enough.
Yeah, well, we can only hope now with the vaccine and a new year that hopefully numbers start to go down again.
Hopefully, yeah. And the whole thing with the new UK strand or whatever, the mutated version, I don't really know much about that, but it's like
crazy, scary stuff.
One of our buddies, you're familiar with Haza Mitchell.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy.
He's talking. I talk to him a lot, and he's telling me, he's over there, and he's like, dude, it gets bad over here, and they're getting hit hard, probably harder than the U.S. right now, honestly. And it's just like, man, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, I was very fortunate in 2018. We got to go to London, a bunch of us from the movie, and it was the greatest trip. I mean, I growing up loving the Beatles and the Stones and Zeppelin and Who and all the English rock bands.
Oh yeah,
and Monty Python and all that. For me to go to England, just was so exciting, and the fans there were so amazing. but it's heartbreaking that they're having their own resurgence as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to go to London, but never had the opportunity. But hopefully one day, we can return to, to the point where we can go, across this, like, anywhere in the world, and it not be a huge risk to your life. I mean, it's crazy. The whole entire world is flipped upside down.
Yeah.
So, Scott, what keeps you going? Like, what drives you to keep going in what you're doing?
Well, I think I'm very fortunate in that because, like I had mentioned earlier, I do sort of wear a few different hats, music and then the acting. And a lot of projects over the last 20 years I was involved in. I was not only in the cast, but I also did some music or all the music for films that I was also in the cast of, which was a really wonderful opportunity and exciting. I think for me, for as long as I can remember, music, number one, and film, a close second. I love those things so much that the opportunity to continue being creative and working never gets old or tainted or boring ever. So I just feel blessed that I do still get opportunities to either hop in front of the camera as an actor or work in post production as a musician. So I just feel blessed.
Yeah, somebody had once said that if you love what you do, then you never work a day in your life. And that's exactly what it sounds like to me. So.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I'll tell you, no matter how frustrating certain projects may become for different reasons, there's one of the most wonderful things for me is the fact that once they're put to rest, they outlive us. Like film is forever in a sense. A piece of music, it outlives the writer, and that's a pretty powerful thing.
That really is, and I started writing what I've been writing, just as a way to just kind of like Chris said earlier, kind of like a cheap therapy kind of thing, and that's really the reason I started this podcast originally. And then I got to the point on the podcast where it's like we just have fun each week talking about our movies and TV and things like that, and it's kind of transformed in this completely different thing, which is awesome. And then the writing too, it's just like. I write something and I see something, and when I make myself laugh, I'm just like, how did I do that? And it's just one of those things, and I love doing it. I'm trying to come up with a comic book character, which that's hard to do, an original character.
Sure.
Ooh, especially with superpowers and all that kind of stuff. But just like the process of sitting and thinking about it and doodling little versions of like what he could look like and things like that. It's a lot of fun, and it's I've been working for several years on this comic idea, because I've worked retail and stuff like that. I am a Dante basically, and I come up with this idea for a comic book, and it's kind of like a Sunday comic strip kind of thing, 2 or 3 little panels of like a store clerk in a crazy situation that's exaggerated for humor and everything. And then, I've been kind of working on that for a long, long time. I need to finally get down and get it in a book and in print is my goal with that one.
Yeah. Well, that's very good because I think one of the reasons why Clerks was so successful is because there's sort of a universal theme there. I think no matter where you end up in terms of your career, most of us at a younger age worked where we had to serve the public or deal with the public. I worked in retail when I was in college. I worked in record stores, but you deal with the public, and it's it's you deal with every kind of person. Not always very pleasant. So
no.
Yeah, I was thinking about that kind of Dante. I really did feel what he was going through in the movie, right? That struggle of going to a job that you really hate, but you need the paycheck, and that just soul sucking, you know, uh,
Yeah.
thing about the whole situation. I mean, I worked at a gas station, cleaning diesel fuel islands and dumping trash cans and making coffee and putting hot dogs on those little rotisseries. Um,
Yeah.
and it was just mind-numbingly boring and unappreciated. And I
Right.
found this
Mhm.
by telling my story, and I'm sure that there were so many others out there in the world that have watched that and have said, I know exactly how it feels.
Sure. Sure. And it's unfortunate. You know, I, there's a lot of people in the world who, whether you want to call them judgmental or whatever, who they look down on service industry types and feel like as if they're only there to serve and they lose the humanity of it. And
Mhm.
that's one great thing about clerks is the clerks themselves were so intelligent that they usually were able to put any customer in his place and they didn't even realize it because they were so articulate with their barbed comedy. Like Randall says, this job would be great if it weren't for the effing customers.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. And I've felt that so many times before even seeing Clerks, and that's why I connected so great with that movie. It's like I'm like, oh, it would be great to come into a place like this and be behind this cash register and just sit here for 8 to 10 hours and do nothing. That would be an amazing job. But I guess the real world doesn't exactly work that way. And I've never spit water at people, but I mean, come close. I've had a few moments where I wanted to spit water at people or throw their keys away.
Right. I think that they do what a lot of us in retail wished we could do.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I were to vent on a customer or show that I was frustrated, that I'd be fired in a heartbeat. And yet these guys, they are literally given carte blanche to do whatever they want, and we
Mm-hmm.
kind of get a chance to live vicariously through them, right?
Right, exactly. Well, you guys see, Dante was like the good angel on one shoulder, and Randall was the devil on the other shoulder. So you had good cop, bad cop.
Exactly.
Dante was always trying to do the right thing and the polite thing, and then Randall was just ready to give anybody hell at a minute's notice.
Yeah. They would do anything. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I feel like I'm kind of a mix of both of those guys. I think I'm more of a Dante, where that's how what I put out to the public, and then I'm completely Randall on the inside at times, where it's like in my mind I'm spitting water at you, but in reality I'm just saying hello, how are you, and being polite, and it's just. Ugh.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like I could see those two guys on my shoulders, little Dante and little Randall on the other side. Oh, that's what I love about those movies. Those two characters are great, and I'm excited to see Randall come back and see where he's at now, what he's been doing for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, me too. Very much so.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I was really bummed when the first round for Clerks 3 didn't work out, but I mean, it's for the best because I know this new version of Clerks 3 is probably going to be 10 times better, or maybe not better, but just good in a different way.
Absolutely. He himself feels that the first shot at Clerks 3, it was actually a lot darker. It was comedy, but it had a lot more darker elements to it. What he's got going apparently in this newest Clerks 3 sounds really funny and hilarious. And if he could pull it off, then the whole thing goes around in a made a circle because I don't know if you're aware, but he's already discussed that, they make the movie. They're going to make the movie. And when you think about that, that's really an awesome full circle thing.
It makes me wonder, too, if he says essentially that, they end up making Clerks or a movie like Clerks. Now, I wonder if the Clerks panel in Reboot is the same Clerks that Dante and Randall make.
Right. Well, he's, he's hinted towards it would be easy to bring back a lot of the old cast as a result of that. Because you can imagine if he does it where it's similar, then you would have a lot of those same characters. You would have Rick Derris, you would have the old man, you would have the same girlfriends. Unfortunately, we lost Lisa Spoonhour, but bless her.
She was a wonderful person. I got to know her pretty well on Facebook for a couple of years, and she was super nice. Yeah.
But there's an opportunity for a lot of people from the first one to come back if he sticks to that in the long run. You never know. It's always solely up to Kevin. And a lot of this we'll never know until it's like just about go time,
Yeah, I know he changes things. Like if it works for him, it works for him. I know when I saw him here a few years ago, he read a scene from Reboot that was a little bit different in the actual movie, where Jay and Silent Bob first find out there was a new comic book movie being made, the whole thing. And then there was the whole Kevin James joke there, which that's a great story. Good when they thought Kevin Smith was Kevin James, and now everybody's like, oh, Kevin James, Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm really excited for that movie. And for Mallrats too. I mean, that's changed a little bit a couple of times, I know. I'm glad it's a movie. I was kind of excited when they were talking about doing it as a series. Like a 10-episode series.
Yeah.
But, I mean, unfortunate. Well, I don't know if it's unfortunate or not. I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because 10 hours of story is better than, say, 90 minutes. But at the same time, there's something to be said about an actual film. The way it's start to finish, it kind of tells a more solid story, I think, than having to cram a lot into those 10 hours and have some of it be not really be filler, but you have to stretch out over 10 hours. So I mean, that's a lot of content.
And Jason Lee, I mean, who doesn't love Jason Lee?
Jason Lee's amazing. I mean, I know when, which it's cool because I was a huge fan of My Name is Earl. And when I saw, I knew of like Mallrats and all these movies, but I didn't really make the connection until like after Earl was out and done. And I'm like, wait a minute. I see Mallrats one day, and I'd seen it a million times before. And I realized there's Earl and Randy and, Jason Lee and Ethan Suplee. And I'm like, I never made that connection until like a few years later. I'm like, holy crap, that's crazy. Awesome.
Damn, I know. It's funny.
It's like, those guys have been like kind of together in some way for a long time.
Yeah.
All the way back to, I guess, to Mallrats, really. Or maybe even a little bit before that.
Yeah, and then, cool. You've got Ethan pops in a lot of Kevin's movies. He's in Clerks too.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny too because his character from Mallrats, which
Willem is supposed to be Willem from Clerks.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because he goes through a pretty big transformation.
Yeah.
And that's always funny to watch. Because Scott Mosier was Willem in Clerks, obviously, and then like in Mallrats, it happens the day before Clerks, but yet completely different. And I know they plan on putting Ethan Suplee in Mallrats too. I guess Kevin's talked about that a little bit. I think he's going to be, I don't know, one of the security guys, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to be the Willem character as a security guard or just a completely different character. But either way, it's going to be funny because that dude is pretty ripped now. Like, he's almost unrecognizable. And that dude's...
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
I watched him on The Ranch on Netflix, and that was a great show. I saw him on there, and I didn't realize, they had him in the cop uniform and everything. And I had no idea during that he was in such like crazy shape.
Yeah.
Until after that, I saw one of those pictures of him, like these workout pictures. I'm like, that's not the same guy. That's got to be Photoshop. But no, I mean the he looks great.
Yeah.
And he's a funny dude. Funny guy. And so I've been thinking about another movie that I know you were part of, and that being Vulgar. And that movie, honestly, I hadn't seen until or well, early 2019 or yeah, 2020. Sorry. And because I never could find it. I mean, I saw it online, but I never actually ordered it to get it. And I had a friend send one to me, a copy to me, and I finally watched it, and I loved that movie. That's such a good movie.
It's crazy, and I thank you for that, because I agree that, you see, it's a really solid film, but because of the subject matter, which I try not to get into in detail just so I don't give away spoilers.
Right.
Because it's so intense and it's not everybody's cup of tea, that whole thing really, I mean, I think that's the kind of movie where a lot of the fans either loved it or hated it because it was so extreme with what happens. But Brian O'Halloran, as far as an actor, he is so bold in that role. That's a very bold role.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think he gets nearly enough of credit for how he tackled that role, but I was very happy to be a part of that and get to work with everybody again. That was a really great shoot. I had a good time on that one.
Yeah, I love that movie. I mean, and another, Ethan Suplee again, and it's just a great movie. I don't know. I kept seeing more people. I didn't know much about it. I knew the basic, plot of it being like essentially this clown for, adult parties, basically. It was the idea. And if anybody had seen the original Clerks and you see the little animation of the clown kind of like dancing in the beginning, that's the character he's supposed to be. So,
right.
I mean, and it's kind of cool, and see, everybody that popped up, I see you pop up on screen. I didn't even realize you were in it the first time I watched it. I was like, oh my God, there he is. Like, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And Brian Johnson, like, and that movie just came out of his head.
Yeah, it is quite disturbing on a lot of levels, but it's also, it rides a line of black comedy that's really sort of brilliant because the subject matter. You're talking about Brian. I think what a lot of people miss is I do believe that's the first time we see Kevin play somebody other than Silent Bob.
Oh, really?
He's hilarious in that. I do believe that's the first time on screen he plays somebody other than Silent Bob.
I think so. I mean, I know he was in a few things after, but I do believe that was the first time.
Yeah, and he's hilarious in it.
Yeah, he's great in that movie. I mean, he doesn't give himself enough credit as far as being an actor. He's like, oh, I'm a terrible actor. That's why I don't have any lines. And it's like, that dude's great. I mean, he needs to give himself a little bit more credit. I mean, because
I thought he was really good in Catch and Release too.
Yeah, that was a good one. Another good one. And there was another one. Jeff Anderson's movie. Now you know.
Right.
That was another good one. The whole idea of the funny part in that movie is, the concept was get your buddies to break into houses and just mess things up so you can drive up business for your company. And after watching that movie, I used to go when I would visit someone's house, they went to the next room, I would move things around just to kind of mess with them. I'd take the TV remote and put it on the other side, take their phone and put it on the other side. And like, how'd that get over there? They're freaking out.
I thought he was also really great in the Die Hard movie he did. Yeah.
And I never saw the Degrassi stuff, but I know Jay and Silent Bob were in there, and they were in the Scream movie, Scream 4, I believe.
I think it might be 3.
3, yeah. Okay, I couldn't remember. It's been a while. But yeah, those characters have been in a lot, and I really enjoyed the Clerks cartoon too.
Oh, the Clerks cartoon was brilliant. It's a shame it didn't continue.
Yeah, only like 6 episodes. I think.
Whatever you wanted with cartoons,
Oh yeah, and I think they've talked about possibly bringing it back. I don't know.
That would be wonderful.
It would be great, and right now, especially, cartoons. You can't really go wrong with a cartoon. I mean, it's as far as, especially with COVID and everything, you don't have to really worry too much about, having people close together to film because, being able to record voiceovers at home and just kind of send it in.
And as far as pushing the envelope now, back when they did the Clerks cartoon, it was on ABC, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was long before you could really push the envelope with, things like Family Guy and, things that were really South Park and things that got really hairy. They really had him reined in. Now he would be able to be on a network where he would be able to go nuts.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it was on a platform like a Netflix or like a Hulu or any kind of streaming service, because there's so many shows on, like Netflix, for instance. So many of these adult comedy cartoons that I love. I mean, there's one on Netflix called Big Mouth. I don't know, and then Paradise PD, Brickleberry, like all these kinds of things that kind of go past some of the things that South Park does. Because they're on the streaming platform, they really have free reign to do whatever they want.
Right.
And so it would be kind of cool to see, a Clerks cartoon on a platform like that where they can really go. Because I know ABC was they really restricted then. Jay and Silent Bob weren't drug dealers; they were firework dealers, which was kind of cool, And
it worked, and I actually thought that the constraints didn't hurt the comedy. I didn't think.
No,
I didn't think. But of course, I'm super partial. I mean, anything he does, I'm partial to. But now he would have free reign.
Absolutely, and it would be the great time to do it. I know he's doing a lot of work on the Masters of the Universe. I was going to say reboot, but it's really a continuation from what I understand from the original He-Man cartoon, and so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, the guy's a machine. He's unbelievable.
I can't wait for that one. It's I don't know when they're going to be putting that out, but I know it's hopefully sometime this year.
Yeah, I don't know the timeline, a lot of this stuff, because he's always so constantly busy.
Oh, yeah. Busy, like all the time. I caught, Chris and I, we talk about the DC CW TV shows a lot. So I loved when to find out that Kevin was going to be directing some of those shows when he did a few years back. And then the one episode of Flash where he essentially had Jay and Silent Bob in the Flash. So that was actually really cool. I mean, it was a lot of people probably like, who are these guys? Like, these guys are stupid. But I mean, for me,
it was pretty, when I saw that episode, and I did not automatically make the connection. And I thought, I went back and watched it. It was obviously Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I had not realized it. So
it was great. I mean, Kevin was even wearing like the hat and the coat and everything, which a different coat. But I mean, I didn't see it right away, but I knew they were going to be in the episode. But I was like, oh man, this is hilarious. And then I think it was the year before when Jay was in an episode by himself. And like he was on a date with some girl, and she's like, "Is that your car?" "Yeah, that's my car." Then some big monster like squashes it. He's like, "Dude, that's my mom's car." That was great.
It is amazing though that even after all these decades, right, those characters have lasted that long, right? I think it just is a testament to what you guys created, back in '94. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, to be honest with you, if you would have asked me that, back then, if those characters had the capacity to do that, I would have said no, only because of how crude. But they really were allowed to kind of grow and mature with their audience. So now people really embrace the middle-aged Jay and Bob. And that's really awesome, And again, that's a testament to the fact that most of his material is, no matter how racy or no matter how dick and fart it gets, it's from the heart.
Yeah, and that's why Reboot is so great. I mean, that movie, I saw a post online the other day about, what's your favorite? If you could only watch one Kevin Smith movie forever and you could never watch another one, what would it be? And I was torn between Clerks 2 and Clerks and Clerks 2 and then Reboot. Like those, I couldn't decide. I'd have to have I'd have to sneak the movies in on a deserted island or something. Like, I don't know. And that movie, when my father passed away last year, and then watching that movie now, watching Reboot now, and it's really a story about like a child and their parent. Like, that's the real story. And it really hits me in a different way now. And it's such a good movie.
Sure.
so many good, touching moments. I mean, it brings a tear to your eye, and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I crying at a Jay and Silent Bob movie?
Yeah,
You know, that's the whole thing. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, the audience really allowed them to mature right along with them, which is really nice.
Mm.
Hey, I can't believe we're rounding on our hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're right at the hour mark. It's crazy.
Is there anything you wanted to get in before we go?
I mean, we kind of. I don't know if there's anything specific. I know
I know you didn't have a real agenda.
Not really. Yeah, I thought it was fun to just kind of talk and chit chat, and go over a few things. And we talked about, your book, your audio book, the CD, and everything. I'm enjoying all that, and the movies and everything. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's really been nice just getting to know you as a person, not just an actor, but as just a multifaceted individual with all these talents and things. So just for sharing that with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And we definitely will do this again. Hopefully I'll have something to promote somewhere down the line in 2021. And let's pray 2021 gets better for all of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I guess my last thing is if you have the opportunity to be in another movie as the same character or as a new character or as yourself again in the View Askew universe, I'm sure you would probably jump on that, if you got the opportunity. Or
you're saying what if I had the chance to choose what type of character I would play in a Kevin Smith movie?
Yeah, I mean, would you want to go back into the Chulies guy again? It's what would he be doing in 2021 or whatever? Or would you rather play a whole new character?
Well, you know what? I'm going to defer to Kevin because I so implicitly trust his writing that no matter what he wrote, I'm sure I would love and I'd be there with bells on. So whether it was the insane Chulies Gum guy and what he's up to now, or somebody brand new, his writing is impeccable. So whatever he came up with, I would be more than happy to, like I said, show up and give him 110%. But interesting question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I hope to see you again in one of those movies, and any movie really. And the newest movie that I haven't got a chance to see, I believe it was Wit's End.
Wit's End, yeah, that came out this past right when COVID hit the worst. We actually did get to do a screening, but that's out on streaming. Wit's End, that's on Amazon. Darkness Waits, Libby McDermott, Matt Stolley's movie, that's also out on many streaming platforms. Very excited about that one. Chris Pierdomenico's film, that's on YouTube. Tom Zanka's web series Deep State, I got to be a part of. See, I feel I'm almost embarrassed. 2020 has been so horrible for a lot of people, but I was very fortunate to have a number of things come out this year, regardless of COVID, as well as the audio book. So I've been very blessed.
And yeah, hopefully we get Shooting Clerks comes out soon. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's got to come out. Hopefully for come out publicly for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I've been excited to see that movie for quite some time. I know a few people who were involved in that. I know you played a pretty important role in that movie.
Yeah, I was very. That was really sort of nerve-wracking, actually, to play his father. I was like, such an important figure in his life.
I can't wait for that one. I can't wait for all those. But...
Yeah, maybe we could do a show when that comes out.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be awesome. Hopefully soon.
Yeah. But listen, I want to really thank you guys for having me, and keep me posted. Look on my Facebook and on my social media for the links for all those other projects. And I wish you both the best moving forward with 2021, and you stay in touch with me.
I'll definitely will, and I wish you the best this coming year as well.
All right, man. You guys have a good night.
You too, Scott. Take care.